I think after this chapter, Nacht's probably my top 5 of the characters. Like, I'm just thinking, like, off the top of my head, you got, like, Asta, Zora, Merleona, and then, probably Rades. Well, Rades is, like, probably my honorable mention, because I like everything about Rades, but we don't have a lot about him overall. And then probably, like, somewhere like Yami, Nacht, and stuff. Also Dante is probably, a contender. I need more Dante content. Same thing with Rades. But anyway, I really liked Nacht's general display in the entirety of this fight. I thought this was really good. I thought this was a really nice closeout, while also not having Nacht die. I still think Nacht could have won this without it being that much of, like, a massive jump, just based off of, like, the way that his magic was talked about, like, explained in the chapter, and it would have been more of, like, trapping them, and, it could have easily been, like, there's a way to, they can come back and stuff. But I'm fine with, how it went, hype stuff for the Devils and whatnot, but Nacht's performance in the chapter is definitely my favorite. I mean, even if he pretty much did lose, like, he was going to die if Asta didn't show up, it still was, a really good display of him as a fighter, as a character, him, having his whole, his surpasses limits moment, so he's thinking beyond where he's at, because one of the things about him, obviously, wasn't just the fact of whole, like, he's gonna surpass his limits and stuff, but he talked about how he knew his limitations, so he never tried to have that, that limit break kind of go beyond trying to, like, kind of like extend yourself at any point in time during a fight, trying to pull through at the last second, or try and just have, like, like in the heat of the moment, development or progression or growth kind of thing. But I like that he did that here, because even if, like, in the mindset of the whole surpassing your limits thing, even if, say, you didn't succeed, something like Nacht was doing here, and you still, you should still want that drive to win, that drive to do your utmost at every point, even if you're like, oh, I'm at, this is everything I can do, trying to find something beyond what you're currently capable of, even if it's, like, a power jump, or a new spell, or you have a new strategy. It's always a good thing, just in general, to be looking for aspects like that, especially in the heat of battle, because, like, this was a life and death situation, so he should have been trying to express every option he had, and trying to be looking for new ones. But the whole flashback moment with him and Yami was really nice. I like that, like, the stuff where Yami goes and picks up his cigarettes, that's where Yami started smoking. That'd probably be really awful, because, like, assuming Yami had never smoked before, because you get, like, right before the flashback kind of pulls out, he's coughing. So I would assume that he wasn't, smoking prior, or at least very rarely. So, like, just, that was probably, like, a really difficult, cool moment for him. It was like, I don't think I've ever smoked cigarettes, at least not I can remember. But it was like, the second I probably would try, it would probably mess up my lungs, because I know there's, like, a complete difference between, like, I've smoked cigars, but I haven't smoked cigarettes, and I know there's, like, a just general different, kind of, I don't want to say weight, but it's just general, like, build up to it, and kind of thickness to the style of smoke and whatnot. Like, holding his composure on the way out probably is really difficult, and I think the parts where he's coughing in there is just a nod to that, which I thought was just a really interesting character moment on exit for that flashback. I didn't really think about it at the time, but, like, going through it, I just thought that was, like, a really good character piece to put in there. But him combining his devils, between, which one's a Nacht 2? He did a cat, was it Plumide, and his rooster, Wagner. Like, having them combined, I think, is really cool in general, because it's one of those things that it's like a concept that is easy to figure out if you really kind of just sat down and looked for ways to boost each of them, but it's not like, it's not something you'd instantly just, like, come up with at any point in time and be able to expend it, like, be able just to do it. Obviously, it'd be clearly strenuous, because it was something that he had to have, like a limit break moment to do. I thought that was really good, and, like, when he just merges them, the form looks cool. This is definitely not coolest form with these two combined. I like the, he's got the two sets of horns, he's got the claws and those cool, like almost like belt-like strappings to wings. He just looks badass in general. And the description of it was my favorite thing about it. It says he expresses that his 4 devils are all mid-ranked, which is funny, because I assumed they were all really low-ranked, but after seeing the, the low-ranked ones, and then the gap between them and the mid-level ones that we saw, not that long ago, makes more sense, obviously, that his are medium ranked, given that their abilities are actually fairly impressive. You know, they're not like the same as, you know, high level devils and stuff, but it's still there's still a good chunk gap for them. Meanwhile, when it comes to his whole description, I like how he's saying, like, combining them, he has like a chance to use one like high class devil spell. He says like supreme devil. I don't know why they're changing the translations of it. You know, it was high class and then it was like highest order, and now it's supreme devil. I don't really know what's going on with that. It's a little weird. Maybe it's just like the way he's describing it. I really kind of don't like the idea if they start calling them supreme devils now. I just, every time I hear that, I think of, I'm just thinking of Taco Bell. But he makes this thing, was it Monument of Atonement, rather. And I like the idea of it because like he's making essentially, when he says, you know, monument, he's making this big structure of him sacrificing himself in, like, just in what would win him this fight if it wasn't for the fact that Lilith and Nama, you know, destroyed it. And he says that it's that he's pretty much going to trap them in a void space. It's kind of like the what's the spell? Genesis Zero from Barrington. Like, you look at the idea of it, like he's pretty much trapping them in like some void null pocket dimension. And he says that he's going to play tag with them forever. And inside there, he says, inside a world of shadows with no light, life, or death. Which is really kind of weird when, you know, you have that wording, because like he himself, like he not dying is one thing, but it's like Lilith and Nama, from what we've been given about the devils, is they don't need to eat or sleep, or they don't age. I would assume unless you kill them, they can just kind of like indefinitely live. So trapping them in there, I don't know why he says like life or death, given that like even if you trap them in like just a general pocket dimension, say you grab one of these devils and you just put them in some form of bubble, you know, outside of your dimension, and they're stuck there forever. I would assume they'd be stuck there forever, and it's not like, oh, you know, you're gonna, this, kind of like, in Jujutsu Kaisen, you have the prison realm, where it's like Satoru is kind of just like trapped in there, and time doesn't flow inside there, so he'll never age. He's just kind of stuck in there until somebody lets him out. So even if it's like centuries later and someone lets him out, he'd be like the same as when he went in there. Whereas like these guys, I don't think they wouldn't age at all anyway, so like it's just a little odd wording of how he puts it. And then one thing I noticed, I actually didn't really know if it was shown before this chapter, is like when it's displaying the church, it looks like it's inside the Spade Kingdom, so he must have teleported them somewhere nearby. I would assume, you know, you have the roots from the Tree of Kilthoth and stuff. I didn't notice that. I thought it was like some weird place, like out in the middle of nowhere, which, I mean, that's still fine. It was just something that I didn't really take note of exactly where the church was. I was just like, well, maybe maybe it's just somewhere where Nacht knows to go, or it's probably, well, given that it's in the Spade Kingdom, you know, it's directly adjacent to the castle, I would assume that he probably saw it going in and then decided to take them there. But when they burst out, he brings up, like, you know, he's like, impossible, you know, they broke my spell, something that doesn't physically exist, something like shadows, you know, you can't touch a shadow, and he's like, they use their spells, and they devil ice magic and devil flame magic, and they say it burns away everything, freezes everything. He's saying, like, even light, shadow, and invisible concepts they can destroy. So, I'm wondering, though, entirely of the way this works. I was talking to a little bit, like, J Cloud, and, like, Josuke, and a lot of the guys from, you know, the meetup from the Black Clover podcast. I was going to say the guys from that, but it's like, other than that's Josuke's podcast. It would have been weird if I made it seem like everybody was confined in there, and it's not like a converging point between all those other people. I don't know. Wording in there would bother me if I didn't mention that. But there's like a couple things about this that's just in general. I really want to know the details of it, because he specifically says, like, he's talking about like invisible concepts, something like light and shadow and like null space, I would assume. But the aspects of, like, their hacks, because it's definitely really, really good hacks. I mean, they're broken. But I don't think it's, like, I'm seeing this as, like, kind of like when Glamour World got introduced and people just jumped all over that like it was some unmatched power within Black Clover. I remember, like, some conversations people would say that, like, nobody can match Dorothy at all, and, like, she could take devils and stuff, take Zagran, and it got ridiculous for a while. I don't know how many conversations I had on like streams. I think it was mostly just a couple of debate streams, but definitely there were some people that thought it was really weird. But there's some aspects about it that I think are definites about the hacks' limitations, Because one, like, and we've seen this chapter. Also, I'm sad about Nacht's Devils and Plumies and Wagner, because they're like, their masks are just on the ground and they're like puddles. I'm hoping they're not dead. I'll be really sad if they're dead. And not just from like, that means that Nacht can't use their power anymore, but you know, I like his little devil group. It'll be sad if he only has the two. But at the end of the chapter, Asta coming in and cutting off, I think it's, yeah, Nama's the fire one. I get them mixed up because we, like, every time we have them, it's like the same time, so we haven't had that many distinctive differences between them other than their elements, and then one is male and one is female. But Asta comes in and cuts off Nama's hand, and the thing about it is, if it was like outright full conceptual like fuckery, then stuff like magic and anti-magic wouldn't matter because it would completely ignore the concepts of it. But it's still rooted in the power system and the fundamentals of magic within Black Clover, so obviously anti-magic is still going to affect it. It's kind of like how time magic is so broken, and it's like time can, like, you know, think about it, like Julius can age weapons, people and stuff to dust, but, you know, Asta can still like, the second that he can cut into it, anti-magic is just going to cancel out effects, similar to Dante's singularity. But, because that's another thing, it's like, when he went to go attack Dante, and Dante used gravity to manipulate the space, he's not directly just doing, like, it's not like spatial magic, he's using the magic to manipulate the actual thing, so Asta's sword went right through it. So the spatial manipulation that's being done there isn't the same as like what they're doing here. What they're doing here is still rooted in magic, whereas what Dante did was like something caused and affected by magic, but what he's affecting it isn't the same. Kind of like when he made those condensed stone swords. It's weird because they look crystal-like in the manga, but in the anime, it's like, you know, they just look like super dense rock. But, you know, they're affected by magic, but they aren't magic, so when Asta goes to clash with them, it's not the same. But on top of that, I would assume, just based off of the power system, that a devil, you know, somebody just with more mana, not even just a devil, like if you just had a character, like you maybe get some, like, someone like Licht or something, not like Licht, maybe like full power, prime Licht with all his weapons and stuff, maybe against one of them, but I don't know. I'm just thinking like the hypothetical of just the idea of mana. Like, more mana can overwhelm their hacks and their magic. Kind of like, you know, it's not the same thing, but think back of like when Elfana was going, you know, getting ready to go berserk with Salamander, and Finral couldn't even maintain his portals at all. Like, he couldn't even make one that big. It was barely like the size of like a freaking basketball. Not a basketball, because I mean that's round, but I mean like kind of like a dinner plate. It was very small and it couldn't hold its size or shape at all. So it's just like the aspect in Black Clover of so much more mana than another person's mana can kind of just slowly break it, and it's just like you can't do anything there. I would assume that's the case with them, because otherwise, what could higher level devils do to them? Because if it was just like no limits, they could just do whatever, then Lucifaro couldn't do anything. It'd be like he tries to apply gravity to him, they burn it, freeze it. He throws a singularity at him, or you know, any of his other hacks, they would be able to destroy it. But it makes more sense in just the general consistency of how Black Clover's power system works if you're able just to kind of overwhelm it. Another way to kind of you look at the example of it is Bleach. There was a moment in Bleach, I actually forgot about it until a couple months ago, because I was trying to, like, I was getting more really into, like, watching some Bleach stuff for a while, but, like, there's the whole aspect of Suifon's Shikai, of Suzumebachi, how it has that double sting instant kill. You know, first hit puts a mark on you, she hits the same spot, you instantly die. She got the double hit on Aizen, but because Aizen has so much more Ryatsu than her, he was able to pretty much nullify the effect. I would assume that's the same thing of what, like, somebody that's higher level than Lilith and Nama, you know, any devils higher ranked above them, something like Megicula, or whoever Xenon's devil's name is gonna be revealed if he is the space devil or what, or Lucifara and whatnot, they could just completely cancel out the effect of what Lilith and Nama are doing. It's really weird just because it's really cool. I mean, like, Black Clover has had, like, lots of crazy hacks, and, like, the thing about a lot of mangaka is when it comes to, like, power levels and stuff, they usually keep a similar mindset if they have other series that are battle stuff. I mean, you can look at, for me, easiest one, you look at someone like Mishima, you look at Rave Master, Fairy Tail, you look at where, you know, Eat Stuff for High People and Eden Zero. They're, like, big stuff in that is always crazy. And when I read Hungry Joker going to Black Clover, I knew that their stuff was going to be crazy And we got some crazy early stuff on, people like Julius and whatnot, and then stuff like this, obviously, big hacks. Always good to, do crazy more versus stuff on it. I'm always a fan. But at the same time, I want it to make sense. And then, like I said, similar to Glamour World, when Glamour World was revealed, it was like, wow, really, really high level ability, really good, but there are limitations, there are aspects to it that people need to always remember, and it wouldn't make sense if there wasn't something for Lilith and Nama. And like I said, like, Asta's still able to cut right through them, and they should still be rooted in the aspects of their magic. Another one to kind of use as like an example, because it is really broken, but like, look at something like Acnologia. Acnologia ate a hole in the universe, like got sucked in, consumed a nothing dimension, that's like a hole in the universe from like time, space, strain and whatnot. Ate it, broke out, shattering space and reality like glass. But he still, at the end of the day, was able to get affected by motion sickness. He still was because he's still a wizard, he was still a dragon slayer, so he still had to abide by the rulings, all the way down at the bottom and base root of how his powers work. And I would assume it'd be the same way for Lilith and Nama. Just because that's what would make sense to me. It wouldn't really make sense if they could just, do whatever and, like, nobody could ever kind of, like, fight back against it other than anti-magic. Because, like I said, what could any of the devils higher ranked than them do if they couldn't deal with that? It's, like, a weird thing that it's, like, it has to obviously make sense, and you gotta look at it from the standpoint of the logical hierarchy of them in the system. So it is really cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the people that think there's just kind of like no limits to anything. Similar to like when Satoru Gojo, showing up in the anime Jujutsu Kaisen, everyone that doesn't understand like how his powers entirely work, they just wanked into all hell. There's always going to be those people that just look at the broadest description of what's given and never look beyond that, and they just think characters are unbeatable and there's nothing that anyone can ever do. It happens. Anyway, Asta showing up. I kind of wanted Asta to show up a little later, but I'm not opposed to this. The thing, obviously, I really want to see now that Asta is here is the interaction between Libe and I assume it's I'm pretty sure it's Nama. I think it was him. Yeah, because his left hand is the big one. So a lot of people have the theory that the devil that threw Libe at the gate was Nama, and gauging by the arm that threw him, and the one that Nama has, a lot of people assume that it's him. I really want to see that interaction. That's the thing that I've been looking forward to in general. I know a lot of people have, just because it's a really interesting back and forth potential between two characters. But I kind of wish that I do kind of wish that Nacht trapped them and was able to win this, and then Asta showed up for like another game. I thought it would have been really cool, because like the way that I would have. The only way I would have changed this, because I do like Asta showing up. I like that he's got like this cool savior moment here for Nacht, because obviously like a lot of people have really come to like Nacht. I am included in this. It's really nice to see him show up and help him. And I like the wording in the officials way more than the fan translation, because when the fan translations it was like, what are you doing, Vice Camp to Black Holes? It seemed more like he was trying to almost, not like belittle Nacht, but kind of like that tough, not like tough love, but like tough motivation. But it's like, what do you think? And the officials like, what are you doing to our vice captain? It was cooler that Asta was referring more to, Skull, like almost like a wording of not defiance, but more like a wording of like aggression at the devils for what they're doing to Nacht, rather than it being directed at Nacht. I actually like that better. But actually, kind of, I really wish if I could alter this, it would have been like Nacht does beat them, and then it's like right when you get that moment of Nacht dealing with Lilith and Nama, another gate opens. I would have loved that. It would have had such a nice, that's nice and all, but fuck you kind of thing. Kind of like when they beat Dante and Xenon showed up. Because I really love that moment in that whole in the full first part of this Bade War. Like I really like that Tabata did that. Like he had the full fight go through, and right when you thought it was like over, and then here's Xenon. He just pops up, and it's like it makes sense because he's got spatial magic, so he can just make portals and stuff. And Morris is still unchecked. Nobody's doing anything about Morris, so Morris being able to just Morris being able to just keep doing what he's doing would make sense. And Asta showing up, you have the main character at the start of the show and stuff. Him showing up in time for that, I think would have been a little bit more hype. But, I mean, I'm fine with this regardless. That's just one of those, like, if I could alter some things, but not, like, it doesn't really matter. That's more of, like, a personal thing. I'm still hyped for this in general. I really want to see this jump for Asta, just because I also really want to see, and I know a lot of people talk about it, is what exactly else Asta has in his Devil Union. Does he have any other abilities other than like having your own potent anti-magic? He's got these weird orbs all around him and stuff, and you know, he's got like the general increases in like strength, speed, durability, I would assume, and whatnot. But we'll see. I'm definitely really hyped for the next chapter. Really want to see just Asta go off on these guys and see where things kind of progress. Because even though it's really cool that Lilith Nama have this hacks, I really want to see a Devil come out with some Zagreus type magic, where they just have some really weird, broken magic that like we can see displayed at like a like something that's just hard to think around fighting in general, like magnetism or something. That was one of the ones we were talking about the other day. Is like what other kind of Devil powers? Like magnetism would be really cool, or if you had some form of. If you had, like, I was going to say, like, a spatial idea, but, you know, we already have a spatial Devil coming up. But, I mean, I don't know, I'll just stick with magnetism for now. I've been riding the idea for stuff like radiation or plasma, and then, like, those are always going to be default picks for me. But anyway, other than that, give me your comments and thoughts about this chapter. I really liked it. It definitely was a big up chapter for me. Again, really liked Nacht's whole display. Really happy that Lilith and Nama got to show, like, their devil threat hacks, because other than that, before this, it was just like powerful fire and ice. So now we can see, like, you know, these guys are big threats. You know, they have very broken magic, so they're living up to, you know, the devil hype and whatnot. And also, again, I really like the cool paneling that Tabata always does with them, where it's like one is on one side, one's on the other, but they're always kind of like this mirrored effect with each other. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, be friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everyone's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.